When I was a boy, I used to look through my father's drawers. He was a quiet man, not one to openly show all his thoughts and feelings. Eventually, I came to understand from my mother that my father had been in the war, World War II, and that was the cause of his silent, brooding nature. I discovered a few of his artifacts from that time. 2x2 snapshots from a Brownie camera of his Canadian ship, Chinese junks, some Japanese money, some wooden chopsticks. I questioned him repeatedly on that part of his life. Dad replied, the only people who talked about the war were the ones who never really experienced it. I guess that made me feel like I shouldn't be talking about it. He rotated a few stories around from time to time to satisfy me. He'd sing the Chiclet song, or I joined the Navy to see the world, and what did I see? I saw the sea. One day I noticed a thick scar running down his shin in the bathroom. I was surprised when he told me it was from a Japanese bayonet. How? He had been in Hong Kong Wharf when he was attacked. What'd you do? I shot him. I stayed awake nights watching old war movies, Combat, Rat Patrol, and spent countless days leading my Army squad. My dad was sitting at the table next to me. I thought it was a good time to bring up the subject. So I asked him, Dad, I don't think I can go to Vietnam. I'll have to go to Canada. He was quiet for a moment, and then he said, I went. I was sitting in the chair, and I heard Dad talking to himself. He was muttering, grinding him up, grinding him up, grinding him up. And I said, Dad, what are you talking about? And he said, the men, goddammit, the propellers are grinding him up. And then finally, I realized he was reliving D-Day. For some reason, I always connected to Asia because of my father's experience in the war, fighting the Japanese. Eventually, I married a Japanese woman. I went to Chicago.While for my wife's sake, for my marriage. But another reason was because of my childhood. I wanted to go back to find the true Asia, not the Asia that I grew up to visualize. Asia where we were fighting American soldiers in the jungles with Japanese soldiers and bayonets.
Who is in the position of plus and minus? Husband, plus, and wife, minus? You may say subject and object relationship.
Plus minus.
Plus minus, more realistic.
Who is it? Satan!
Don't you want to see this entire world to be united as one? One world.
up there at Seoul, and they had a wooden water tower. Well, they decided they'd make home brew in it, you know. They got it all drained down. There was a dead Korean laying inside of it.
A big old tree resembles a nation. Its roots are like the ancestors buried deep in the ground. The trunk of the tree is like its national identity, the people as one. The branches are the different tribes, cultural strains, families. And the leaves are like the individuals. Like most Americans, I learned about Korea in the 70s from the TV show MASH, which was kind of a veiled anti-war show set in Korea, but probably had overtones of Vietnam.
Speaking about our old generation, over 60 years old, one thing I do admire and respect them is because of their total sacrifice for us, for my country. And after the Korean War, we had nothing. We made from nothing to something, and it's totally, completely, it's their hard work. And for example, in Seoul, all the buildings, all the heritage, legacy we lost. So the Korean War destroyed everything, but our older generation, they worked too hard. So as you see behind me, you see all the high buildings, like modern buildings, skyscrapers, all their work. So imagine we had nothing there. So I think that's something they did.
When I got through with my basic training at Fort Riley, Kansas, they posted on the bulletin board, said everybody's name where they were going to go, and it says FECOM. And I went and asked some guy, I said, where in the devil is FECOM? He said, you're on your way to Korea. That's the Far East Command.
So you didn't know about the Korean War?
No, I didn't know nothing.
You didn't know there was a war going on?
No.
How long? No. What's your name?
Harold Wohlers. Harold Wohlers.
You shot all the pictures yourself?
Yeah.
What kind of camera were you using?
Now a little bitty brownie.
The kind where you stare down vertical like this?
No. Let me show you. It took that size right there.
If it's downtown.
Is that some two Korean men? A family, huh?
That
Yeah.
baby brownie or wherever they call them.
It's like my dad used in World War II like that.
Yeah.
They came out real little and then you had them blown up later?
Yeah, yeah.
A good resolution like that. Very
There are many people who are expecting unification within 10 years, but I don't think that would be a good way for our unification. Final unification, I think maybe in a generation, in 40 years or in 50 years, but meanwhile, when we have the official one, we should correspond with each other. We should communicate with each other. We should share lots of things, culturally, economically. We could have cultural exchange. We could have a sports exchange. We could have sightseeing for each other, and more family visiting. And after that, when South Korea much richer and when North Korea much open to us, then final unification. Yeah. But I think what we need the most now is patience and good preparation and learning from some other countries.
But if the people who are not that positive about the reunification, actually, after the last year's, the summit talk between the South Korean president and then North Korean leader Kim Jong-il, and the people started to hope, to have a real hope about the reunification. But actually, still, there are many people who are, who have a real question about that. They think, it's practically and technically it's not possible.